Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. I am so thrilled today to have Nancy Erickson on the show. Nancy, thank you for being here.
I'm so excited to be with you today.
Yay. Well, I was saying right before we came on, I haven't had anyone come on to talk about books as a tool for a while. So this is really good timing going into fourth quarter of the year. People are starting to think about new ways to invigorate their marketing. But before we get into you becoming a book coach and award-winning publisher, which if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see many, many books behind Nancy. It looks amazing. Love for you to talk about your story because you were in corporate before that.
I was. In fact, for like 30 years, I was in the high-tech industry and I had worked for IBM and Oracle corporations. And, those are really stressful industries, especially on the technical sales side and stuff. So I was making a whole lot of money, but I really wasn't very happy. And so anyway, about 18 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with a terminal brain tumor. And we knew he would only live about 7 months. So I quit everything. And my parents were living in Florida. So I went down there to be with him during that time. And then a little bit afterward to help my mom with a transition after my dad passed away. And when I came home, I was like, oh my gosh, I quit my job. What am I going to do? And at first it was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And then it was like, I can do anything I want now. Right. There was a moment of gasping, and then there was, this is freedom. And so I had always loved to write, and I had some things published when I was younger. Nice. And I thought, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I want to hone these writing skills a little bit more. So I decided that I'd take some classes in writing, and I ended up going back to school and got a master's degree in writing and a master's of fine arts in writing. And when I graduated, the university where I'd taken classes asked me to join the faculty. I think it's one of the advantages of being an older student. Well, you're more mature than those 25-year-olds that are coming out, because I think I had a 25-year-old at the time. But anyway, and at the same time, I started my publishing house, Stonebrook Publishing. And I concentrated on nonfiction. I love the truth. The true stories are so much more inspirational and educational and amazing than, fiction to me. And so I wanted to publish nonfiction, but I wanted to publish a specific slice of nonfiction. And we were concentrating on works that would either change lives, save lives, or transform society. So I have a funny story to tell you about.
Me too. I mean, those are lofty goals, very worthy, but yes.
Okay, yes. So the first book when I say we, it was I at that time. It was only me. It's many more people now. But the first book I published was written by a Holocaust survivor who had gone to school with Anne Frank.
Wow.
And I know. And so we ended up doing the book release. Now, this is our first book. We ended up doing the book release in Amsterdam at their school. And they had this ceremony with the students there for the 170 children that the Nazis had murdered. And then after that ceremony, we went right across the street to the bookstore to do the book release. Interesting thing to note is that, of course, the Nazi occupation was in the 41, 42, 43, that time frame. And the only two things that were still in that neighborhood that were there at the time was the school and the bookstore. Wow. And I don't know if there's any significance.
That just gave me chill.
I know. There was something there. So that was an amazing experience. And that book is still being used in the education market as a companion to the Diary of Anne Frank.
Amazing.
It's called Storming the Tulips, if anybody is interested in looking it up. Then the next book that I published, we ended up getting back cover endorsements for that book from Sir Paul McCartney and Cindy Crawford.
Okay.
I know. I was like, wow, I guess I know what I do. Of course, I've been in love with Paul McCartney my entire life. So that was very meaningful to me. But we were also getting a lot of manuscripts that we couldn't do anything with because they were so poorly written. And the whole reason I even wanted to start doing nonfiction publishing is because it's clear that we have so many problems in our world.
Right.
And it's even hard to name them, much less solve them. But I honestly believe that the answers are trapped inside of people like you and your listeners. And that when you simply tell your story, what you've been through, what you've overcome, what you've discovered, what you've invented, how you interpret the world, that you become the source of two things that people can't live without. And those two things are hope and help. So all of our books are intended to offer hope and help. But here we had all these manuscripts that were really bad, but they had a seed of that thing. It's so interesting. It's like once they got in my hands, I felt I was burdened by that. I felt a responsibility about it because these people have something to offer. So I took a step back for a year and didn't publish anything. And during that time, I wrote a very detailed step by step process that will take an average person all the way from their idea to planning their book, to writing the draft, to editing it, and to professionally publishing it and getting it out and distributed around the world. So we've ended up being this kind of one-stop shop for people who aren't writers, but who want to become authors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. Everybody has a story inside, whether they know it or not. That's what I love about what you're doing. And it's also what I love about my job in marketing and PR, is pulling it out and helping them feel confident in sharing that story.
Exactly, because that's exactly what you do when you do branding and that kind of thing. But the interesting thing, Annika, is that as we started helping more and more authors, we were working with more and more business people. And we found that because of the way that we structured their books and all, that this gave them a bigger platform. It was like, if you want a bigger audience, you need a bigger platform. And a book was allowing them to reach out beyond their normal circle. That's the whole thing. You got to get outside your circle, right? And reach more people through writing a book.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, you have a publishing house. And I know there's a lot of people who talk about whether you should go with a publisher or whether you should self-publish or do a hybrid model these days. So can you talk a little bit through that?
Yeah, I'd love to do a little myth busting if I could.
Please.
So, because we are a hybrid publisher. So first of all, to go with one of the big name, there's only 4 now. Consolidated publishers. And let me tell you what the drawbacks are. Number one, you lose all control over your intellectual property. You still own it. It's copyrighted in your name, but you don't get to choose the name of the book, the cover. There are very long lead times, and they may kill it before it comes out. But one of the things that I think is most frustrating for authors is that it's a lot of work to write your book, but then you have to also market it. They pulled back on their marketing support, unless you're John Grisham or, the big names and all. And they will not give you an advance because they don't know you. And so I feel like authors are bearing all of the responsibility. And when they start paying you royalties, it's after they've recovered all of their expenses for producing your product. On the way other end of the scale is self-publishing. And I think it's been a big boon to a lot of people, but I think there's a big misunderstanding about what it actually is. Self-publishing is not do-it-yourself publishing.
Okay.
And many people treat it that way. What it means is that you are the project manager and are responsible for getting all the appropriate talent pulled together to create a professional product. Publishing is a really old industry. There are so many conventions to it. How would you know what to do? It's like I would never start a bank or an insurance company because I don't know all that stuff. Publishing is like that. And so a lot of people, they'll get their covers designed on Fiverr. And one of the key things is to have an excellent editor. And after that, a bank of proofreaders who can make your book error-free. And most people don't do that. And people give me their books all the time. I'm highly impressed that they've written a book because it's hard to do. But they've spent money and, so many times I can spot this book as self-published just by looking at it when they have it in their hand before they give it to me. And your book should do 3 things for you. It should establish you as an expert in your industry. It should increase your credibility and help you attract a following. But I can tell you that those books, they kind of kill your credibility because it's just a cheap product. People try to make the font like 16 point to make the book longer. And I've seen the weirdest stuff. I'm like, why did you do that? You know? So here we sit in the middle as a hybrid publisher. And what that means is that you share in the costs of the production of the book. And we are your publisher. We do everything for you.
So all those things that you were talking about, making sure you have the bank of proofreaders, that you have good editors, the cover art.
And then there's so much more about it. There's, cover designers, and then there's layout artists, 2 different departments. And we take it all the way through the end, and our legal department actually registers your copyright for you with the Library of Congress in your name, of course. It's always in your name. No matter how you publish your book, the copyright is in your name. I want to back up a little bit and talk about writing the book, because we got to the tail end, which is publishing it, and then we distribute it throughout the world. Most people come to us and they have an idea for their book, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to get started. And how would you know? You've never done it before. Nobody expects you to know what to do. So in our process, we've broken it out into little tiny chunks that you do week by week. And I'll tell you up front, it takes a year to write your book.
Okay.
Yeah. And you've seen these 30-day books and these, I don't know what they're doing. That's not what we're doing. We are helping you to create not just a product that presents yourself or your company or your message. We're helping you to build a platform that you can expand your business or your own personal brand throughout that. So that's what I want to talk about. So in our step-by-step process, we start off with a series of foundational questions that you answer. And they're things like, why are you even doing this? And what's your motivation? And who's your audience? You'd be surprised how many people don't know who their audience is.
I would not be surprised.
You know what I mean.
The same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is not unlike what you do with your clients as well. But anyways, we want to know, how's your audience going to be impacted as a result of reading your message? And so there's 12 of these questions, and we end up taking those answers and distilling them down into a purpose statement for the book.
Right.
And it says, the purpose of this book is to do this particular thing for this specific audience, period.
Nice.
You can't put everything that you know in your book. You can't. We have to prioritize it, right? And so that's how we do so. And then I created this process called book mapping, and it's where you develop a visual representation of everything that's going to be in your book. It's not an outline. It's more like a mind map process. And what we do is we start with your own personal story, because it's kind of a short version of how you got to be here and why they should listen to you, So that usually serves as the introduction of your book. When we get into the chapters, that's where kind of all the magic happens. And that's where all the meat that you want to communicate is. So we always want to take the viewpoint of the reader. What do they need? What do they want to learn? What do they want to know? So we construct your chapters in problem solution sets. In a very step-by-step process, you name all the problems your clientele has. And then through a very story-driven methodology, you present your solutions. And you know the value of stories, Annika. So your book is very, very story-driven. And unfortunately, people have short attention spans.
Right.
But what we do is we teach you how to not only educate and inform them, but they have to be entertained to a certain degree to keep reading. So we teach you how to do that. Then there's a whole second part where I put on my professor hat. I think we didn't mention that I taught at the university that I got my degree from. And so I teach you how to write really compelling, creative nonfiction. And you're better than you think you are. It's rusty. You haven't probably written anything but emails since you were in school. You'll surprise yourself, really and truly. At the end, we go through a bunch of self-editing exercises. So one of the fast forward things I wanted to mention is that when your book is finished and out on the market, that's the beginning of things, not the end. So because you constructed your chapters in these problem solution sets, you should be able to take every chapter from your book and repurpose that material for other revenue producing products like seminars or workshops, or if you give keynote speeches, or if you want to do online training or video courses. There's so much opportunity there. But the book becomes the launch pad through which you can spread your message across multiple venues.
I love that. And I also love the fact that you talk about mind mapping and a visual representation. That's something I haven't heard before, because, it's like everything, whether it's publishing or marketing, there's so much information on the internet these days, and people selling this course or that course, or we'll you can write your book really quickly and then self-publish, an Amazon bestseller, and then you're going to do this and that.
And something about Amazon bestsellers. There's no value to that. It's a game, guys. It's just where these people get everyone they know to buy their book one day at a reduced price of like 99 cents. And they watch the Amazon categories all day. And for 1 minute, they may be the top in that category. And that's it. And so that's why you see so many Amazon bestsellers. Yeah. What we do is we want to target your market. We want to reach the market that you want to reach, right? And not care about those superfluous, awards.
Yeah. I think that's definitely something that a lot of people don't really understand either. So you mystified that process in a very quick soundbite. So thank you.
It's not worth anything. It really isn't worth anything. You pay somebody to do it for. If you want it, there's nothing wrong with doing it. But I'm just telling you, it doesn't mean that on day 2, the book's going to be selling. So.
Well, with your publishing business and launching, the step-by-step process as well, do you have time to write yourself these days?
Well, I do. I mean, I'm writing articles all the time, but most of my writing is concentrated on editing. And I don't know if you guys realize that editing is writing. And every book that goes out of our publishing house goes through me first. And so I spend a lot of time on these book manuscripts, just making sure that, and some of them I spend, oh my gosh, I edited one book that was over 400 pages. And I thought, I don't know if I'll ever get through this, but we did. It's beautiful. But most books, you don't want to write a 400 page book. Yeah. So most of what I'm doing now, all that I have time for is editing and bringing that shine to our clients' manuscripts.
Yeah. And do you feel that your background in the corporate world, in the tech and business world helped you start the business? Because
it did. Well,
you think writing, creative process, not necessarily someone who has the business acumen.
Right. The interesting thing is that I only worked with Fortune 100 companies when I was in the tech industry in their C-suite. And now I work with, business leaders and entrepreneurs and all. And I really understand business, which gives me an advantage as a coaching them through that because I understand their issues. And I can even bring things into the mix that they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And I'm like, well, that's what comes to my mind. So you might want to answer this question. But in terms of, being an entrepreneur, and I imagine a lot of your listeners are, you're biting off a bigger chunk than you may think in the beginning. I mean, most of us got into the work that we're doing because we love the craft of whatever it is. We like delivering that to other people.
Right.
But then there's the other side where you have payroll and you have sales. And you have the accounting and the numbers. And if you have staff, people have problems, So just running a machine like that, it takes a while. So I think it pretty beautifully unfolded for me. You never really want to grow real fast because you lose control over that. But as we were growing like 10% every year, and now I can step out of the business and be gone for a week or two. Nice. And it's still running because we have such excellent teams that they know what they're doing and they do it really well.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question about the books. I know it has to probably be like choosing your favorite child, but do you have a favorite project that you worked on or a couple that you can share with us?
Let me tell you about this one book. If anybody's watching on YouTube, I'm going to point to the cover. It's right there. It's called What Lurks in the Woods by Nicole Bell. Nicole is a brainiac, and I'm not kidding, MIT graduate that worked on developing medical device products, et cetera. And so was her husband. And so they start a little bit about their story is that she started noticing, and her husband was a little bit older than her, like 15 years, but she started noticing that he was forgetting stuff like the alarm code on the house. And then he would get lost. And, that's never good. So you kind of probably know where this is going. But anyway, they went to the doctor and they said, oh yeah, he's got Alzheimer's. And she's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. There's none of it in his family. He's too young, and he was young. I don't buy it, And so they were taking him through all this protocols. He was getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm just going to fast forward. He ended up, having to be in a nursing home, and he died a year ago. It was Lyme disease.
Wow.
And if they had detected it at the onset, it would have been, a vaccine or, I don't know, some sort of medication they take. And this is happening more and more around our countries that people are getting infected with tick-borne illnesses, and they don't seem to be able to pinpoint that. So anyway, remember how I said talk about your book being a launch pad? She's appeared on the Today Show. She's been, featured in USA Today. She has now started a medical testing company to test for these tick-borne illnesses so they can identify it right away. That's a real incredible story. And the book is, she's a really good writer too. So
that's really amazing. And that speaks exactly to your mission of wanting to make impact.
Well, I know. But the thing is that I can't do what my mission is if other people don't step up and say, I have something I want to say. And I'm going to talk directly to your listeners right now.
Jeez.
I know you've thought about writing a book. I know you have. And I just told you kind of how we do it. So that whole fear of, I don't know what to do, or imposter syndrome, get that out of your head. I had one guy who had this amazing story. And he goes, I don't know who am I to tell my story. And I'm like, I could stomp practically. I'm like, who are you to keep it to yourself? Don't you know how you can be the source of hope and help? People are in your situation right now, desperately looking for a hand to pull them up. And that's what you can be.
Oh my gosh, I just got chills. I love that you said that so much. That is the thing when people talk to me about PR and they say, my story doesn't mean anything. I don't want to share it. It's not about me. I say,
it's not about you.
Right, exactly. It's not about you.
It's about who you can help and what impact. Don't waste your life by having all these, if you think you have weird secret things, I have those. I'll tell you some. I'm in my third marriage. My first husband had a whole secret life and we got divorced after 22 years. My second husband, I left him when the FBI came and raided for child pornography. And now I have an amazing, wonderful partner who I love dearly. But, I'm a recovered alcoholic. I've done all the life things. And I am so open about sharing those things because, when you come out on the other side of things, you're an overcomer. People need to see that.
Yeah. But people will look at your success and they will think that you're always been that person.
Well, I've been a lot of people.
Yeah.
Really. I've been a lot of people, but I really like the person I am now because you could probably tell I'm more than passionate about helping people to lift up their voice and be heard.
Yeah. Thank you for being so authentic with us today. I love it. I'm here for it. I have some, not exactly the same, but some stories that are similar.
Yeah. Right. So like a lot of people do, it's just, life is a long string of lessons, right?
Exactly. So is there a specific type of person, entrepreneur that you work best with?
Yes, you. I wouldn't say a specific type of entrepreneur, but I would say that most of the people that come to me, they're not sure about doing it, And I can tell you right now, if you're feeling this little, uniting of a little excitement, you're who I want to work with because I can help you through the unsurety of it. And I can certainly help you write the book. But, we do this in mastermind groups that are like 3 to 7 people, and they are so powerful. Nice. Because that group just really pulls each other up and encourages each other. And we offer each other critique and accountability, but it's a fabulous experience. And I know that any one of your listeners could benefit from it.
Fantastic. And you talked a little bit about the book is just the beginning. And there are a lot of things you can do. You can turn it into online courses. You can speak, do keynotes. What are some of the other things that come after the book is published? And do people usually get like a little bit of a letdown? They've been on this high, it's published, and they're like, okay, before they get to the other good stuff?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, yes. It's a long push toward it. Then it's like in this big black hole of editing for about 3 months, and then they get it back and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so good. And then, we publish it and that's a big thrill.
Yeah.
But as you know, because you understand branding and marketing and such, it's really a discipline to keep yourself out there, and we don't do marketing because we are really concentrating on the product development with you. Yeah. But I have so many partners in the industry who can help you do marketing of any type. And even obviously, Annika, to work on your branding and such. So it can be a little bit of letdown. It's kind of like having a baby, I think. You get the baby and then you get tired.
And then you're like the care and the feeding of the baby and like it's a nurturing. And I guess that would be the same thing. Your book is out, but you still have to do things to make sure it's being seen by the right people and that you're in those spaces.
Yeah, but we're your cheerleaders. Yeah. You know, the minute you meet us, you're in our stable of writers. And plus you're going to become my best friend because all of our authors, I have become, oh my God. I mean, in fact, we're traveling to England next week and to meet up with one of our authors that, you know, I published his book like 5 years ago. So
I love that. Building community everywhere you go. Yeah. Is the process expensive for both parts, for publishing a book, but then also if somebody needs that coaching and guidance?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I know about the investment. Expensive is a nebulous word, but
yeah. No, well, I don't think so, because I think that what you get from it, I mean, the value is there. But the mastermind group, remember I told you it would take a year to write your book. Right now, through the fall, it's $375 a month for 12 months. So all in, that's $4,500. Oh. And you guys are getting video training every week and the group and everything. So I've been told that's underpriced, but I'm okay with it. You know, then when you're finished with your book, our editing cost is $15 a page. So, you know, the variable there is how long is your book?
Right.
Our publishing cost is $7,800. And that's where a whole array of staff and designers work with you through all of those things to produce a professional product. And, you know, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see behind me the quality of our book covers. Yeah. Oh, by the way, we have a lot of award-winning books, you know, so I'm really proud of what our teams to bring you to the spotlight.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And those prices seem very reasonable compared to what I've heard from other people in the industry.
Right. So I would say all in, you should budget $13,000 to $15,000 over a year and a half, because it takes another time after you write. Right.
Now, do you get a lot of people who write series, like start with one and then they want to go on to the next and the next?
I'm really glad you asked me that, because yes, some do. And I'm working with one author on their fourth in a series and another in the third. But here's the thing is that some of you, remember I told you have to pick an audience. Mm-hmm. And some people are like, well, I have a lot of audiences. And let's say you're a financial planner. You may have multiple audiences, like, you know, young married couples, or then people with families with growing children, and then people who are approaching retirement. And since we construct your book in those problem solution sets, you write the first book for, let's say, approaching college people. I mean, families with kids approaching college. The problems are pretty much the same. And all you have to do when you're done with that first book is then take the audience and substitute the stories for what you did. Mm-hmm. And so much of what your work could do. And so it's like chicken soup for the soul, you know, financial planning for young married couples, or financial planning for mid-range couples, or financial planning for wild millionaires. I don't know.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I love that, because people are going to connect better with the stories that are relevant to where they are in life.
Well, it does, and extend your brand when you do a series like that. So we will always advise you on how you might do that with your book material.
Nice. So are there any people that you've had to turn away because they couldn't get, because I know for us, somebody who's maybe not the right market, or they have so many different things they're trying to do that they can't focus on what we're trying to do with them.
We can't work with people who can't pay. So I have to say that up front, because, you know, it is a business and we're supporting many households.
Right.
I also don't really like to work with people who are only interested in themselves. Like, you know, they want to write a book about how great they've been and all that kind of stuff. And there have been a few who've come my way and I've referred them to other people, because we're interested in working with people who want to offer hope and help to others. Right. And some people just have themselves at such the forefront in their mind that it doesn't occur to them to do that. And I don't enjoy those type of people. So I have some other people I can refer them to and say,
I love that. You're like, you might not
somebody else. I'm doing that referral thing because one time I doubled the price and the person said yes, and I had to work with her. Oh, it was so awful. And she ended up extremely unhappy. You know, your gut tells you what.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I can't even imagine. I know even as a podcast host, sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes I have those guests come on.
Yeah. Well, you don't want guests who won't talk, right? Yeah. How can you have a show?
They'll talk, but they're really not there to serve anybody or share the kind of information that we want to share with the audience.
Right.
So what other advice would you have for somebody who is thinking about becoming an author? Because I'm sure there are a lot of mistakes that you see when people are starting to think about their book before they come to you, right? Maybe they've outlined a couple things.
Tell you, sometimes you'll hear people say, just start writing. I do not advocate for that because our process is a shortcut. You get that book mat down and then there is no such thing as writer's block when you start writing because you got it all planned out.
Nice.
But what I would say is call me, get in connection with me. I mean, you can go to my website. It's thebookprofessor.com. And there's a link across the top that says schedule a call with Nancy. Right. And I like to just talk to people about their ideas. I will never try to talk you into doing it. But if you're feeling that little, jump of excitement in there, do that. Just go to thebookprofessor.com and schedule a call. We'll just chat about it. I'm not scary or anything, and I can't force you to write books, but I'd sure like to hear your ideas.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. We'll also put that in the show notes so that if people are listening, they can just click through and get to that. This has been just a really refreshing conversation. I've learned a lot more than I knew about the world of book publishing. I know people who do ghostwriting and do different things, and I've seen the ads on Facebook or wherever for different people's programs, but I think you really helped dispel a lot of myths. Is there anything that we haven't shared that you think people should know when they're going on their book journey?
I would just say this in closing. You're the only one who has your story, and you are the only one who can do it. And I promise you that somebody else is out there waiting for the kind of hope and help that you can offer.
Awesome. Thank you. Nancy, do you have a favorite quote or mantra or words that you live by?
Yeah, I like this one. It's by Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one and so appropriate for everything you've just shared with us. Thank you so much. You've been a font of information. I can't wait to re-listen to this episode when it comes out. I know I'll be taking notes again and going to your website myself. So I just really appreciate your time today. And to the audience, thank you for listening to all the great information Nancy has shared with us about how to expand your business by writing a book. Thebookprofessor.com is her website. I will also put it in the show notes. And with that, I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing expert guest. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.